his very staunch stance on it, that the franchise that he kind of helped once again resurrect didn't stand behind him and lend support. And then of course you have Kelly Marie Tran, who's an Asian American, and once again is when she was getting attacked on social media, she wasn't getting any support from the Star Wars franchise. So there's a lot of things as it pertains to race and those type of conversations. And you and I have even talked about how Gina Serrano, like her, she plays the character Cara Dune, but she a lot of times is on social media giving a lot of different perspectives on things, her own personal opinions on things, and a lot of people disagree with her, a lot of people do agree, and some people kind of always wondering, like, is this the platform to really do this, especially when you have a show like this? And we say this all the time, that with social media you kind of have to look at things through different lenses. Some people use it as a sounding board, some people troll, some people do all these types of things with social media, and unfortunately too much information can be a bad thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree with that, because one of the biggest problems is that we're starting to see these people. I hesitate to say for what they really are, because that's unfair. That's classifying people. I don't necessarily think that everybody that talks about something that, if you take Gina Carano, for instance, I mean, that's a really good example, because she's had some controversial tweets, but the thing is, if you really look at a lot of what she's saying, it's not. It's a little bit maybe. I don't really want to say out there. You know what I mean? No, it's kind of like it's unpopular. Let's put it that way. It's an unpopular opinion, and I think sometimes she's unfairly branded because she's putting out all these tweets, and this is a side of her that we wouldn't normally see, but because of social media. These people can talk about things, and it becomes, where is the line basically drawn, where you have these people who have these personal lives and they want to put this out, but a lot of times, much like with music artists, a lot of times a music artist ends up putting out all these albums and everybody loves them or whatever, but then they might say something in concert, or they might do something or whatever, and then all of a sudden, it ruins people's ability to enjoy their music. And I think that really is the saddest part to me. Because on one hand, it's great, because all the social media allows us to communicate directly with these people, right? In the old days, it was kind of like you had fan mail, you had all this stuff. And if you were lucky, these guys might end up giving you like a some sort of like a 8x10 that has basically a stamped signature, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like one of those things. But one of the things that I thought that was really cool about social media is you can write to these people, and a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times they'll write back.
Yeah.
But the downside of it, though, is that if these people say something that maybe makes some of their fan base a little upset or annoyed, well, then it's just open season on them.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. With social media, and Denzel Washington, he's often talked about, too much information.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that, with him being such an accomplished actor and being around on this planet for, a substantial amount of time, you have to use wisdom in everything. And that's the thing I think that a lot of people in this day and age unfortunately lack, is the wisdom to understand the gravity of the situation. So let's just take, like you said, Gina Serrano. No one really cared about her until Mandalorian. Right. People weren't just, I'm sure she had her own little small fan base, but she's exploded now due to her portrayal on The Mandalorian, and because it's such a hit show. Same thing with, Pedro Pascal. Like, once again, he's not like everybody's like a household name, like a Denzel or, maybe, I don't know, like even John Leguizamo or something like that, or some people who's kind of been around for a while. He's just kind of like, all right, you kind of have this breakout character, and everybody's like, okay, well, I want to know more about this person because I like the way he plays this character, and that's what draws people in. And it's funny because you even see it on the reverse side where sometimes these actors play roles or characters that they're just playing a role, like we said about Ahmed Best. He just played a character of Jar Jar Binks, and everybody's just like blasting him or attacking Ahmed, not attacking Jar Jar. You see what I'm saying? So I think people just really have to be cognizant of using some wisdom and just using some, just plain old like common sense, and just saying like, hey, some things you shouldn't say, just because, you know, you represent a brand. And granted, I understand that's their personal page, and they say, hey, it's my thing, I should be able to do what I want, and that's the kind of mentality that people have. But once again, you still have to remember, you still represent somebody. And even in this particular situation with Star Wars, they're a big franchise and they're a brand. And so if you are a family, like you're claiming to be, like, you know, you hear people on the set, oh, JJ is having at his house, and we sit down, and we do all this. And so when you see situations where, like, okay, John Boyega is being attacked, where's JJ's response to that? Where's Pablo Hidalgo's response? Where's Kathleen Kennedy? Like, you brought me here to represent a particular culture, and then when my culture is attacked, you don't stand up.
Yeah, well, and that's a big problem too. And in fact, I'll even go a step further, because this goes along with your point all the time. You know, we talk about how there's like a workplace type stuff in social media, right? So you get these people that, you know, they're sitting there going, well, I should be able to post whatever I want on social media, which technically is true.
Right.
But at the same time, there's a limit to that, because you have to understand that when you're out there in the world or whatever, you're still representing your company. I mean, we have all this access that, frankly, we've never had before.
Right.
We have access to each other. We have access to companies. We have access to goods and services. We just have all this access, all this information that's basically at our fingertips. Well, now, guess what? It swings both ways, because now you have an issue where, look, it's no longer that when I leave work at 5 or whatever, that, you know, I could just go out and party and do whatever I want. Because the problem is you start posting all this stuff on social media, you know, clients could see it, or, you know, people that are in your everyday life can see this,
Right.
and it becomes an issue because, and you and I both know this, that when you're reflecting an organization or a company, that now you have to watch what you're posting. And what a lot of people do now is they'll have more like a public type page,
Right.
and then they'll start a private one that's only open to their friends or whatever.
Right.
And this, of course, is something that's permeating through all of Hollywood as well. And now you come to Star Wars. And I think we should make clear, too, that it wasn't so much what they tweeted. I mean, what they tweeted was fine. It was basically celebrating the life of Dr. Martin Luther King. You know, I mean, that was good. But I think that where the backlash comes from, and of course you brought this up, is that, look, you know, you guys aren't practicing what you preach.
Right.
You know, you're over there talking about, you know, Dr. King's dream and all this other stuff, but yet exactly when John Boyega was having issues, you know, and of course Ahmed Best, you know, we think back to that, they weren't really protecting their own. Now, I will say that back with the whole Ahmed Best thing, that was a little bit different to me. And that's only because it wasn't under Disney at the time. And Lucas did try to defend him. And that wasn't really so much racial as it was just everybody hated the character. But I mean, the point still stands, though. It's like, you know, look, you get these people to come in and do a job, and then they do their job, and, you know, I mean, if they get attacked or whatever it is, then, I mean, it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel that companies have a responsibility to do that? So, looking at things such as, like, you know, we've seen bigger companies like the NFL, NBA, and I know the NFL was like one of the last ones to really jump aboard the whole Black Lives Matter movement. And, you know, a lot of people kind of really took exception to that, because a good portion, probably 85% or more of your of all the teams are predominantly African American. So there's issues like that are going on that are affecting them, and then you feel like, yeah, like what can we do as a unit, to support that? And then you don't really get that support. It's kind of like, wow, this is what, like, do I really want to be associated with people who really don't support what's and acknowledge what's the craziness that's going on?
Yeah, well, and that's it.
Katrina, like, whenever there's Hurricane Katrina or any like mass, thing where there's an earthquake or there's 9/11, things like that, people are just like, oh, okay, we have to stop and reflect, and you want to have ribbons, you want to have banners, posters, and everything else that's going on, but then like, oh, this one is not that important. And so I think that just sends a bad message to a lot of people.
Oh, certainly it does. I mean, it's one of those things that I just think that you have to look at it both ways, because you bring up an excellent point too, where you have companies. Are the companies looking out for you? You basically, you're going out and you're reflecting these companies in your personal life.
Yeah.
But the question becomes, are they actually supporting you? And everything when things are bad for you. And, one of the things that I thought was really cool, and I saw a lot of restaurants do this, company I work for does this too, where during this whole pandemic thing, and, sometimes you have to lay people off, sometimes you have to do stuff like that. I mean, the companies are actually trying to help their employees, companies are really trying to be there for them. It's kind of like, look, you're helping us all this time, we're going to be loyal to you too.
Right. So I guess we have a few tweets. Not tweets, I'm sorry.
Like chats?
Yeah.
Yeah, remember, hey guys, listen, sorry about that. We broke in a little bit of it. I found out with this particular streaming platform, when you hit go live, it doesn't actually go live. It did on Twitch, but it didn't do it on YouTube. I actually had to go into YouTube and hit live. So again, bear with us. We're on a new streaming platform right now, so we're kind of learning some of the quirks. But hey, I'll also take this time before we get into the chat and try to launch that off and see what happens. That if you guys like what you see, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, because we're talking about all kinds of things Star Wars. It could be anything from favorite characters or whatever, to something like this, where there's more of a social spin on it.
Yep.
Let me guess, is it from Ronaldo?
Of course.
Of course. All right.
He says, hello guys, what's up? So,
can you hit the, we'll hit the send button. There we go. All right.
So, yep, he says, hey guys, what's up? Nothing much. Apparently, he's also saying there's an echo in the audio.
Yeah, well, it doesn't surprise me. I wonder how bad it is, though. That's one of the things, too, that we have to look at. We think that we fixed it with ours. There should be, though, because I just checked it before, so we'll see. Let us know if it ever goes away. But yeah, it's one of those things that I think, you have to look at. Pretty much these companies, they want to sit there and they want to do the whole, oh, look at us, we're supporting all these things or whatever. But then, rightfully so, these actors are like, wait a second, where were you when this happened? And John Boyega was a great example, because he was the one, he was marching all the Black Lives Matter stuff. He was the one that was, out there pretty much.
He put his career on. He's like, look, I'm probably going to get hired after this, but I don't care. This is what is really, this is a serious cause that we really need to bring to light. And I think, like I said, once again, when you have a character like Finn, who, once again, for those young people who didn't grow up watching Billy D. Williams as Lando Calrissian, or maybe you weren't even born yet to see Samuel L. Jackson play Mace Windu, maybe you just come into Star Wars around this era. This is a person for young African Americans who like, hey, there's somebody in this galaxy that looks like me. Even they brought in Jenna. She,
Yeah, I know that character though.
Yeah, and it's just, it's one of those things where
I want to support, but you know what I mean? It's kind of like, but Mace Windu.
Lando,
and then even going into some of the other nationalities, right? Like Chirrut Emily.
Yep.
Cassian Andor.
Andor represents the Latino community.
Sure, and even Din Djarin, right? I mean, Pedro Pascal. You can't get more.
Yeah, and then also, what is the guy from Rogue One? He represented the, I want to say, was it Middle East? The one pilot that was when.
Yeah. What's his name? I bet you Ronaldo knows.
Yeah, I can't think of it. It starts with, I want to say, like, it starts with a B, I think. But,
yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, Star Wars has kind of always been that kind of and you're bringing that melting pot. You know, it's kind of, and that's one of the beautiful things about Star Wars. One thing we love is that, you know, it's dealing with people from all across the galaxy, literally. Like, you got creatures, you have people of other ethnicities, and it's really good to see that. You have, now we've seen a lot of more the women kind of taking the lead role with everything from Daisy Ridley playing Rey. You had what's my joke from Rogue One? What can I think of her name right now?
Jade
Erso.
Jen Erso.
I can't want to say Jennifer Erso, but it's not.
I think it was Jen Erso.
Yeah.
Jen Erso. That's it. That's it.
See, but yeah, you know what I'm saying? We have these women who are taking the lead after Carrie Fisher. So I think this is really just a time where people really do have to be cognizant of what they're putting out there, and companies are really having to stop and take a look. Like, hey, do we support all of our people? You know.
Well, and that's it. I mean, that's it right there. It's like, do we support all of our people? Because that's one of the things that I think will quickly. And you know, the thing that's really funny about this is that even though back when, and it started with Lando Calrissian, where you started seeing non-white faces basically in the Star Wars franchise, and it's one of those things that I think this is really reflecting our time, because even through the 90s, now the 90s was definitely a time where everybody was. I mean, there was some volatility in the 90s. You had a lot of gang issues. You had the racial tensions were getting kind of, and they were brought to the forefront. But I think what's one of the things that's different, though, is that when people would look at something like Star Wars, for instance, they would basically not be thinking of that.
Right.
You know, that's our escape, and that's everything else. What's different about today is that now you're getting all this stuff getting into our entertainment now. And I don't mean just like subject matter, like they might have a plot or something that reflects something that's going on today. I mean, literally, people are looking at it through that lens, which I don't always think is 100% fair.
True.
You know, one of the things that really irritates me, like with Cobra Kai, everybody's up in arms because they say there's too many white folks in Cobra Kai. You know, and it's kind of like, well, number one, Miguel. It's like, I mean, it's and Kyler, and you know, I mean, I could go on. It's not like it's completely, but you know, you have to understand that in certain areas, right, where it's kind of a legacy thing, where you just happen to have a bunch of characters. I mean, it's almost like they're going too far the other way, where they're trying to make sure. Yeah, like it's, and you know, I'm not saying right, exactly. So I don't. You know, I mean, it's one of those things where they keep saying like too many, you know, and it's like, well,
yeah, like who's sitting there with the counter and just going like, okay, 1, 2, all right.
Well, it's even in society, right? I mean, it's kind of like, okay, in society, you might have maybe one racial group or ethnic group or whatever, and you're doing a story on, and it just happens to be comprised of one type of racial group.
Right. Got a couple chats. We have
Ronaldo.
Yep. I think this is something common, not only in Lucasfilm but in companies. Period. Definitely. He also says many don't reflect what they claim to support. True. Very.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's really the biggest issue is that. A lot of times, on one hand, you know, they want to talk about all the stuff that they're doing, right? It's like, look at everything we're doing for insert racial or ethnic group here.
Right.
or gender,
yeah,
or anything, right? So it could be anything that they're trying to basically spotlight or whatever. But then when you actually look at what they're really doing, it's kind of like, okay, your actions are not matching up what you're basically saying. And I think that that's the reason why Star Wars is fairly getting a backlash. I mean, normally I would actually just say, oh, what? Come on, guys, really? But this time I'm not, because you also have where we had the famous thing with Pablo Hidalgo's over there, like just beating up on Star Wars theory, basically.
Yep, now here you have a Latino who's beating up somebody who's white because they're enjoying Mandalorian.
Yeah, because, you know, they're crying because of the Mandalorian or whatever. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, I get it, but at the same time, it's sort of like Star Wars is trying to preach this whole, you know, community-based thing, and, you know, we support our fans, and we love everybody or whatever, but they're not always acting like that. And I think that that's the biggest problem that really we're facing in a lot of different franchises.
Yeah. Going to back to the chat, Mother Vincent says, hello, Ronaldo. And then Ronaldo also replies, yes, the pilot from Rogue One is called Bodhi Rook. Yep.
Bodhi Rook, that's his name.
Yep. I knew it started with a B.
Yeah, it was one of those things. Well, you know what's funny? I don't ever. I mean, they may have mentioned his name in the movie like once or twice or something.
Yeah, they really didn't mention him a whole lot. But when they brought up his dossier, like that he's like this defective pilot, pretty much. They kind of like, oh yeah, because Saw Gerrera said it.
Yeah. But he, you know, the way that he talks, it's kind of like, yes. Hey, it's Saw Gerrera.
Yep,
another one.
Yep.
Let's spot the minorities in Star Wars. Yeah, that's a good thing for a white host to do. I'll let you do that part.
You the delegation say.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want us to get popular for the wrong reasons.
The wife is a local boy, huh? And then there's a lot of love going on here. So Ronaldo and Dwight are saying hello to each other. So glad to have Dwight back.
See, and this is actually a good thing too, because this is one of the things that I like to. And this actually is very topical. I mean, I say this on almost every show that we do, but this is actually topical. It's the fact that we're trying to create a community here, and that's one of the things that I think is special about what we're trying to do. Now, you know, hopefully we get a few more, because our subscriber count's a little on the low side at the moment, but the thing is building organically, and the people that are here, and the people that are engaging with us every week, it really is like, hey, we're all going to get together on a Friday and also Monday to talk some Star Wars.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think the more people that get involved in that, the more people will feel like that. Like, we're kind of a tight-knit community, and, you know, we're all made up of different ethnicities, races, you know, all kinds of different things, but
we all find a love in Star Wars.
We all have a love of Star Wars, and, you know, that's the thing that we have in common, and everybody's respectful and cool, and nobody gets out of hand, and that's the kind of thing that we're doing. That's why it's so good to see that in the chat, that, you know, now people are greeting each other, and because it's not just a funnel to where everybody is watching us. It's like everybody kind of feels part of the same group, the same collective.
And we can bring order to the galaxy.
Yes. Yeah, that's one of those things that's really important too.
Yeah, so I mean, just kind of bringing this whole thing to a close, though, I just think that, honestly, just companies like Ronaldo was saying, you know, companies in general need to support, and then that's what makes people want to come work for you. That's what makes people want to stay and do the press tours and really go out there and mix and mingle with their fans, because they don't have that bad taste in their mouth, because they really truly feel if something happens, I know they got my back, and I'm going, you know, I'm taking out my time, you know, going on these, you know, lengthy, you know, autograph signings, and doing all these Tonight Show, you know, spots, and I'm, you know, really trying to push the movie and, you know, make the company look good. And, you know, what do I get? What thanks do I get for my efforts when I'm getting basically attacked? So
yeah. And I mean, that's basically what it comes down to, and it's one of those pretty much put your money where your mouth is.
Yep.
and that's what I think it is. Well, I guess we can prepare to do even more battle, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully this is going good. Again, we're testing out a new platform. Not even sure how it's going to do. It's like a totally different computer I'm using. Like everything's different tonight. So we'll see how it goes. But what do we got next?
Next we have Duel of the Fates.
All right, so Duel of the Fates. Mm-hmm. This is, of course, a segment where we put a couple of characters up against each other, or ships, or concepts, or point is, it's this versus that.
Yep.
So what do we got?
So this week we have who will win in combat between Mary Jade or Ahsoka Tano.
Oh man, it's funny because I actually so next week we'll do the one that you were talking about, but
this was a really good one. When you brought this one, I was like, ooh.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that this one has a lot of promise, because once again, I already know for everybody that's out there. First of all, because Jason, he always comments on our stuff pretty much after the fact, and I get it, right? I know that it's going to be a little bit of an apples to oranges thing because thus far, although we'll see in the story that we have later on, but thus far, Mary Jade resides firmly in the expanded universe. So I understand the difficulty of comparing these two, but if you think about it, we've had Ahsoka up until now, only recently, and only in like one episode of The Mandalorian. So really, we've only had one live-action depiction of Ahsoka.
Right.
But we have the whole Clone Wars things, and then of course we have all the expanded universe books that have Mary Jade. So I feel that we can do somewhat of a fair comparison. This is really going to be difficult.
Very difficult.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, you can tell I haven't put a whole lot of thought into this.
Before we get into that, I want to apologize to Miss Valentine for the echo. It's a new format. You're just joining us tonight, but
yeah, I gotta figure out why there's this echo.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah, it's right. It's kind of a work in progress. It's a new platform.
It's kind of like Han fixing the Millennium Falcon. It's always something.
Yeah, it's like working out some of the quirks of this thing too. It's
very interesting and intricate in this.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. And I'm still not sure because going out, I mean, it should have been, but hopefully it's not too distracting.
But
we'll get it worked out. But I'm thinking for this one, I'm probably gonna go with Ahsoka. Normally I would go with Mary Jade because she was actually almost besting Luke at one point. And she was the Emperor's hand, and she's gone up against a bunch of different. I'm not entirely sure how many Jedi she's gone up against, though.
Well, just for the sake of fun, I'm going with Mary Jade.
All right. I can't wait to see why you're doing this. Which is weird because I'm the one that's really read all these expanded universes. But I mean, I know you've read some of them.
Yeah. But I want to go with, just for, of course, the fun of it all.
Well, of course.
But I would say this. Being the Emperor's hand, I think really plays a lot into this. And also being like, this kind of top-rated assassin. Now, granted, Ahsoka is very, very talented, and she was trained by, the best of the best. When you're looking at her teachers, you had... I'm sure Yoda's probably taught her stuff. I'm sure definitely she's learned a lot from Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Oh, without
question. And then she's even went up against Vader in his early stages. Now, could she have beaten Vader in her early stages? I believe she could have.
Really?
I believe she could have because it was early. And Vader's whole... getting used to the suit and fighting like this, that whole, and you have to think about that. She knows pretty much everything about him, so she was really formidable, to a young Vader. Now we're talking about, Episode 4 Vader, not so much. Now, Mara Jade. I think Mara Jade is very. I think she will put up a good fight because one, I think she will once again have that cunningness of the Emperor, and
I could see that.
And that's one thing that I think people really don't talk about a whole lot is that his whole style and his way of and Palpatine was very big on power. He was very big on being ruthless and relentless, and I think that type of mentality going into a duel might be a little bit overwhelming for Ahsoka, especially since she's just as agile, just as fit, just as tenacious. I think that and once again, she was actually besting Luke in his prime.
Yeah, I mean, I will go along with that. That is very true.
So those are my explanations for Mara Jade.
I could go along with that. The only reason why I'm just going with Ahsoka here it's really the only reason, because for all the reasons that you said, I was actually gonna go with Mara Jade. Because that I've been wanting to have her come into the whole canon stuff for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a long time. I mean, ever since that I first read about her in she was right in Heir to the Empire, actually. Like, she was right there from the beginning. I thought her backstory was really good. I thought the explanation of how she could take out or at least challenge Luke very early on. I mean, he was able to best her, but not by a whole lot.
Yeah.
Because she was really good with, she could use lightsabers too. She could use all kinds of weapons. She was really good. I mean, she had a lot going for her, basically.
Yeah, but she was more like a souped-up Asajj.
Yeah, that's actually a good way of putting it. I never really thought about it that way, but you're right. She is kind of a souped-up Asajj. She was, and basically that's the case because she was an assassin.
Right.
But that said, Ahsoka being a full-fledged Jedi, and I'm assuming that we're talking about Ahsoka Mandalorian era, because that's around the time that Mara Jade would have been. I mean, she was around technically, unless, of course, they change her in canon in Disney. But if they go just strictly by the expanded universe, she pretty much was around during the whole original trilogy and everything like that. But where we really get to know her is after Return of the Jedi. So that's where I'm going to look at Ahsoka a little bit. And I mean, Ahsoka by this time is completely Jedi Knight, maybe even borderline Jedi Master.
Yeah. Before I get to that, Ms. Valentine says, no worries, I can hear you guys. So that's good. Ronaldo says, very complicated, but I think Mara wins. It seems to me that she's more experienced and had better training. And then apparently Ronaldo also has acknowledged the fact that the Echo is gone. So that's awesome.
Yeah, because I found out, just in the interest of disclosure, that your audio from your actual individual input was on. So I think that that's where the echo was coming from. Because I was kind of like, wait a minute, there's no way. There should not be any echo in this. So good. Now we can enjoy, like probably 2/3 through the show or whatever. It's like we got stuff worked out. But you know what? We appreciate you guys bringing this stuff to our attention, because this is the kind of thing. I mean, we went through this when we first started streaming too, even with our other streaming platform. It's like, okay, so you just, keep letting us know if you guys see anything wrong. But the thing about Ahsoka, though, is she's a full-fledged Jedi. She's extremely skilled at fighting. And I would say even more so than any of the others, and this is a point that you brought up early on that I thought was actually good. Now, even though Luke is way more powerful, no doubt about it, your point was that Ahsoka had more combat training because she had to go up against some Sith. She was, going up against all these other, during the Clone Wars and everything else that you can think of. I mean, she just had to go through
a lot more people.
A lot. And I mean, Mara didn't, even though it's not like she hasn't fought anybody before, and being the Emperor's hand too, she was kind of like the next level of an Inquisitor.
Yeah.
You know, I see the Emperor's hand, even though I don't think the Inquisitors really existed. They came along a little bit later. They were around before Disney bought out Lucasfilm. So they are kind of an expanded universe thing, but they weren't exactly like what we see in Rebels or whatever, right? They were a little bit different. But so Mara, it's not like Mara wasn't around during some stuff where things could have been happening.
Yeah, I mean, I just really look at it from the standpoint of the type of, I think once again, is just the type of mentality I think that Mara has, being the Emperor's hand. She's got to be super powerful for her because she's essentially the Emperor's bodyguard. So,
yeah,
you know, you got, when you think of on that level, you know, it's like if you're Palpatine and you're like this top level Uber Sith Lord, okay, who's really qualified outside of Vader to protect you? So when you just think about the position itself.
Well, but look at the Royal Guards, though.
Yeah, but like I said, she was above them.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah. So, I mean.
Because the Royal Guards are pretty fearsome. And I don't know if she was above them. I think it was more like a lateral kind of a thing.
And it could have been, I could be wrong. That could be true.
Well, and I could be wrong, too, because it's been like 20-some years since they're 30.
But let's just say, they are, though. Let's say she is. Let's just say she's pretty much equal with the Royal Guards. The fact that she's still able to pretty much almost best Luke Skywalker, who arguably outgrew Vader. You know, so I just think by default you got to go with Mira on that one.
Yeah.
But I do understand, and I could make an argument for Ahsoka.
I mean, that's it.
I do have arguments for her.
That's why this is such a good matchup, though.
Yeah. Next week's is really going to be fun, too.
Oh, yeah. Next week's is going to be fun. But I already have my pick for that.
Yeah, you already got a peek into that one.
I got a peek into it, and unlike the other ones, I actually, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to ponder it too much because, you know, that's next week's thing. But I will say that these are really close because you can really go either way on this, man.
Mm-hmm.
Mara is definitely a formidable, pretty much like a weapon in and of herself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though she wields a bunch of weapons. I mean, she is a weapon. But I don't know. I tend to think that being that Ahsoka is actually a full-fledged Jedi and that she's mastered the Force. And that's one of the things that Mara was basically having a little bit of an issue with, too, with Luke, is that combat-wise, she was able to basically beat him, but once you factored in his Force powers, it just became no contest. Now, she did develop a few things that would allow her to get around that a little bit, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's really difficult to say. And the other thing is, the reason why it's interesting to bring this up now is because now that we've had Ahsoka on The Mandalorian, we see where she's at.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, before Season 7 of The Clone Wars, before Rebels came out, you know, we just had Ahsoka. And granted, she was powerful then, too. Like, even at the end of Season 5 of The Clone Wars. But once you see her in Rebels, you know, you see a little bit more of a progression. And like you said, I mean, she was holding her own against Vader, which was no easy feat. Because granted, even though it was the early days, Vader was still trying to get used to his suit and, you know, all this other stuff. Still, he was pretty much at the peak of his powers, too. Or at least he was approaching it.
Yeah,
He was definitely approaching it. So, I mean, this was not an easy thing for her to do. Then on top of that, you go back and you see what she's like, even though, again, it's technically kind of a prequel because it happened before Rebels, but you see where she was at in Season 7 of The Clone Wars, and then you actually fast forward to where she's at The Mandalorian, and she's pretty powerful at this time. Now, what's going to be interesting is to see what happens with the Mara Jade character and what might happen with that, because whether or not, you know, they write any novels about her or anything like that, I mean, that remains to be seen, but just going by what we're seeing so far, I don't know. I guess I have to just give it to Ahsoka on that one. But
Okay.
you're gonna still stick with Mara Jade?
I'm rocking with Mara Jade.
What are the people in the chat saying? Anything yet?
Not yet. I know Ronaldo, he's on Team Mara Jade.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's all we have for that so far.
Well, all right. Well, as always, you guys, we're going to be here for a while, so you can chat in anything you guys want, and we'll talk about that. But, as of right now, I think it's time to move on and get ourselves a little drink.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's do the cantina. If I can actually go to the cantina. All right, so the first thing in the cantina, which I found really fascinating, by the way, is this thing that came out of nowhere, the New Republic, or not New Republic, the High Republic. See, there's the Old Republic, New Republic, now the High Republic. The High Republic shorts. Did you see it?
I haven't watched it yet, though.
I decided to do it last night because I'm like, you know what? A lot of times these stories will come out, and I'll kind of like half read the article and everything, and then we get on the show and we start talking about it, which of course we could do because, I mean, let's face it, we're big fans. I mean, even if we haven't seen anything, we could talk all about it, and usually Ronaldo or somebody has seen it, so it's a frame of reference. But I decided, you know what? We're going to be talking about it today. Let me just check it out. Let me just watch it and see what it's all about.
Well, what did you think about him?
It's cool, but one person's criticism of it was that it was kind of like, what's the point? Now, here's what you guys have to understand. I get it that the High Republic is a brand new thing. It's a brand new era. Everything about it is new. Unfamiliar characters. I mean, only Yoda. He's the only one that really sort of transferred over, right? But the thing that I find really interesting about this is the fact that the way that they're marketing it, while I don't disagree with it, I mean, I think that it shows that they have a plan. Unlike what we saw in the sequel trilogy, not only did they have a plan when they wrote all this stuff out and everything else, but even the marketing, they definitely have a way that they're rolling this out. Now, you and I both read the first comic, which, of course, we reviewed. I'll put a link to that in the description. But, or not the description, the comments. But basically, the book you and I still have to read. I mean, I have it. I just haven't read it yet.
Right.
And then the issue number 2 and 3 of the comic is coming out, like, I don't know, any day now. In fact, issue 2 may be out. I'm not sure. But I know 2 and 3 are coming out pretty close. So now they throw out this short. And basically, I'm trying to remember the name of the character that they were...
Vernestra Rowe?
Yeah.
I can't pronounce her last name.
I know. And
first name is Vernestra.
Well, and I'm not sure because, again, I haven't read the Light of the Jedi book yet. But apparently, I'm not sure if this person's in the book or not, or if it's somebody that's coming up. Because there's a whole gang of Jedi and Padawans and all kinds of stuff in that. And we've actually done shows on that before, too. But they have to roll this stuff out. They can't just give you everybody at once.
Right.
So what this short was a bunch of like 3D still images, kind of like a parallax kind of thing, right? And, with some music and dramatic type stuff. And they basically just told this whole story about this person, which, I mean, it was cool, but I'm not sure exactly what they're trying to do. I mean, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to get you excited about this and maybe want to learn more about the character. But it almost seems to me like they should do something more along the lines of Forces of Destiny. You remember that?
Yeah, I was thinking they were going to do something almost like those Clone War animated things. That's when I first...
Well, and that's kind of what Forces of Destiny is like. You know, it's sort of like that. I mean, it's... it's one of those just like 3-minute, 5-minute cartoon, but they're actually animated.
Yeah.
It's not like some sort of comic book come to life kind of thing. But, again, it's not bad. But, I mean, I think the question becomes, what do you think the overall plan is for their marketing that they're trying to do, and do you think it's successful?
I think they need to flesh it out just a little bit more. I think if you're going to give fans something like, or you want to give, like, we don't want to see shorts at this point, because essentially, like, we got the comics, we got a book. You know, if you're going to show us something, really show it to us. So, like, give us, like I said, one of those old school Clone Wars animation shorts, if that's what you want to do. If you want to do something like that, do it in that style, or like you said, Forces of Destiny.
Oh, I'll even go even further than that. I mean, the Forces of Destiny, the Clone Wars, that's the least I think they should do. Mm-hmm. What I honestly think they should do is just do a full-blown animated series in the style like Rebels or the Clone Wars or the upcoming Bad Batch series.
Or even if you wanted to, like you brought this up before, just do it like a full-on feature movie.
Yeah, no, there you go.
An animated feature movie, though.
Absolutely. Like, and see, now that... Okay.
I see. I struck.
Yeah, man, you really hit the nerve on that one, because what I think they should have done, honestly, was they should have kicked it off. Like, remember what they did with the Clone Wars?
Yep, the movie. Yep.
Theatrical. I mean, granted, it ended up being really the first 2 episodes of the show, but if they did a full-length animated feature, maybe it's like an hour and a half or something, or even an hour.
Yeah, so basically, like the stuff that you see, like a lot of times on Netflix, where they'll have like Justice League stuff, or like a lot of the Batman and Superman stuff, Marvel. They have like a lot of these animated movies that are a little bit more in depth and graphic, but they're like an hour and a half, 2 hours long. So if you did something like that, where it's like an animated movie, where now you kind of release certain things, you know, along the way to kind of get us introduced to these characters. I think that would
really that's cool. Basic. Exactly. Just, you know, use that as sort of your launching pad and the means that you use to just pretty much introduce us to this world. Mm-hmm. Because it's not just the characters, it's the whole world, it's the air. I mean, it's everything. Yeah,
because, you know, for those, once again, who are not familiar, the High Republic takes place 200 years before the events of the Phantom Menace, which is episode 1. And this is pretty much where the Jedi are kind of in their prime. You know, this is after the Old Republic. This is going on, like I said, 200 years prior to Phantom Menace. So everything is kind of like bright and spanking new and shiny. And it kind of has this whole like King Arthur, regal kind of vibe to it. So kind of think of Star Wars in a cleaner version of Game of Thrones, if you will. That's kind of what it's like. Mm-hmm. Almost like a Bridgerton without the sex, probably, of Star Wars. So, yeah, it's kind of in that vibe.
Yeah, and I think
that would be really cool.
Exactly. I mean, if they had just done something like that and then launch it into all the books and comics, that would make sense. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that doing it with the books and the comics isn't bad, because you could do a little bit more world building that way, but either an animated feature that they put on Disney Plus, I think would have gone a long way into selling this, because right now I don't think people really know what to make of this thing.
Yeah. Ronaldo says, I think it was cool, but I think what they're doing is expanding the High Republic. Maybe they're preparing us for some sort of animated series. He also says, I think they want to wait to see the public's reaction to the books and comics before showing something on a larger scale. And that could be true. And I could see that. You know, you don't want to just put something just out there. And you got to think about, like, you know, now you got to find voice actors. You really have to delve into these characters and kind of figure, like, okay, what is this person? What is, like, Great Storm? What does he sound like? You know?
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if it really would have been that much more. I mean, granted, it's not like I'm minimizing it. I mean, it's like, what? Just do his whole animation that would take, like, years to do or whatever. But... And that's why they're doing these shorts.
Bernardo also says, let's remember that this will take place in the Alkali era.
Oh, does it really?
So that's... And
it makes you wonder if there's going to be a crossover.
Well, yeah, I was just about to say it, because it makes you wonder, like, okay, well, Alkalite has its own series coming out, but that's live action. However, we get animation on this side, or at least comics and books at this point. So you kind of have to wonder, like, why didn't they just roll out this whole High Republic? But I think it's going to kind of grow into, like, the High Republic is going to be the new playground for Star Wars, and the Acolyte is kind of going to lead people to the High Republic.
Yeah, because one of the things, and I understand this, and this goes to Ronaldo's point, is the fact that they probably don't want to spend like a ton of money on this, because this is one of the first things that isn't rooted to a pre-existing character or era, right? You can't bust out Han, Luke, and Leia in this one.
Right.
You can't break out Obi-Wan or any of this other stuff. So
Right.
you're
Yoda's all you get.
yeah, Yoda is all you get. And I mean, there is that, but to actually come out with a animated series or like a live action thing or a movie or something like that, it would be a little bit risky and it could be costly. So I think what they're doing it's true. I think that they are just testing the waters, trying to see like, hey, is it possible? Is it profitable?
Even more important.
Would be more important, yeah. Is it profitable to do this on a larger scale? Because with the way that Star Wars has been lately, it's so shaky, It's like, I don't know if this is really a good idea. I mean, I don't know if we really want to dump a ton of money into this thing because they really don't know what's going to happen. I mean, what I think that they should do, and who knows, this might be on the plan already, but like these Funko Pops that we got behind us and everything, and just other like figures, they should really start marketing the High Republic. Bring out the figures, bring out the collectibles, bring out all this stuff. Because if you think about it, Boba Fett he was introduced in the Star Wars Holiday Special, but the figure came out long before Empire Strikes Back did, by like a year or something, or maybe 2. So it's one of those things that, like, look, you could actually break out a Gray Storm figure of some sort, right? And if everybody latches onto it, they're naturally going to want to know more about this thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard because, like I said, and the fact that they have like different books and comics kind of released at different times, you kind of almost have to wonder, like, okay, where's the story? Like, is there like a central story to all this, or it seems like we're kind of just dropped in this world and all this stuff is going on at different times?
Well, Ronaldo can correct us if we're wrong here, but the book, I remember, does tie in. Like, it really is beneficial to read the book before reading the comics, even though you can, because we're just looking at it like, okay, 600-page book or like a 10-page comic. Yeah, I'm going for the comic on this one, right? At least at first, because we really want to be introduced to the world, but it's like you can't get right into it right away, So that's one of those things that I think is important to note, is the fact that you have to look at how much time people can invest. If you start kicking out all these like really big Lord of the Rings sized books, you might not get the big audience that you want to get. But if you get the bite-sized comic books, if you start releasing a couple animated shorts, this is something that people can get into and invest in without really spending too much time. Because the biggest problem is, and this is something the pandemic has helped with all these series that are out, with all this stuff, like streaming has just gone insane.
Yeah.
So you have all this stuff now that's fighting for your time. And then you got stuff like, our show on YouTube. You got all these YouTube content creators out there. All these people on Twitch that are gaming and doing like what we're doing, because we are on Twitch too. Hello to all our Twitch followers. So you basically have all this media that's fighting for your time. So the best thing for them to do is to probably come out with some of these bite-sized things. But that's the reason why I said, look, if you came out with an animated movie that was like an hour and a half long, that's not a bad way to actually introduce all this stuff. And that's the thing, is that you're fighting for the attention. You're fighting for, let's bring these people in and get them hooked.
Yeah.
Because once they're hooked, then it's almost like they want to come back. And even if they don't like something, they're thinking, well, okay, I didn't like this episode or whatever. Well, maybe the next one's better.
Yeah, and plus you want to see how things eventually end anyway. So
yeah, well, I've been so guilty of that, man, to where it's kind of like one of those.
I don't like this, but I got to see how it ends.
Exactly. Like, this kind of sucks, but I really got to check out how this thing ends. And that's basically how it goes. But the short was interesting. It was good. I don't know if it's something, though, that is going to appeal to a wide audience, and perhaps it's not supposed to.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the audience that they're going for are the people like us. I say that even though you haven't seen it yet.
Right. Well, I'll probably watch it tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I figure you planned on doing it, so, you know, not trying to speak for you here, but I think that I'm pretty sure that you want to do this, so.
Definitely.
You know, that's cool. But I don't know. I just think that this is kind of a weird thing as far as the marketing goes. I think the marketing has been really odd on this whole thing.
Yeah. The marketing with Star Wars stuff is kind of...
Well, that's true. I mean, they've been marketing just everything in general really weird lately.
Yeah.
But you would think, though, with this thing being a new era, that they would sort of go on more of a blitz and it'd be a little bit more linear about it.
Yeah, exactly. Ronaldo also says the Acolyte will take place in the last days of the High Republic era, so I guess they wanted to kind of slowly introduce us to this timeline. He also says, or maybe it's not so much to introduce fans to this era, but rather more casual ones, because because surely the casual viewer does not read the comics.
I don't know. You know, I don't actually know about that, because I guess it would really depend on how you define casual, because there are a lot of comic book readers that it's almost like they're more of a fan of comics, and Star Wars is just one of the comics they love to read. But they're kind of like comic book collectors. I used to be one. In fact, I was very close to trying to deal with them, and I had a friend that ended up being a dealer. But when I was a kid, like 6, 7 years old, I mean, pretty much from my earliest memories, I was always into them.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at casual fans of stuff, usually they're more just movie, TV shows.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is a comic book fan might be a casual fan of Star Wars.
Oh, yeah, I get what you're saying.
See what I'm saying? But
yeah.
they're into comics.
And Star Wars just happens to be one of those, like, okay.
Right, but maybe they're like super into like Batman or something, or you know, whatever. But Star Wars is something they like. They're a casual fan of Star Wars, so it's like, well, I'll read some Star Wars comics too.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you're saying, and I think what a lot of people are saying, is that, yeah, what we define as a casual fan are people that they're just interested in the movies and maybe the TV series if it catches their attention. They don't know every release thing. You hear people go, oh, wait, there's a show about a Mandalorian? It's like, well, yeah, it's been on for like 2 seasons now. Those are your casual fans, at least as far as what people think of when they think of casual fans. But what I'm talking about, though, is that you also have casual fans within different mediums. Mm-hmm. So you might have a comic book guy who maybe he's also a casual fan of Star Wars, but he reads comics.
Gotcha.
Whereas when we think of casual fans, we're always thinking casual movie fans.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I mean, that's just one of those things that I think that the distinction has to be made, you know, to Ronaldo's point, is that there are definitely, and this is one of the ways that you can do that. I think when they started doing regular Star Wars comics, where it wasn't just, oh, look, here's a comic book version of the movie, I thought it was one of the smartest things they did.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, I think that, you know, I think they're trying to hit everything kind of from all angles. You know, so I think they're kind of starting like, okay, we got books, we got comics. Those are easier things to kind of get out. We kind of see how fans are responding to those. And then, because those are going to be your more serious fans generally, like the books, because you're investing a lot of time in reading 600 pages.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think if those get rave reviews and everybody's like, oh, yeah, we love this, you know, I can't wait to see, okay, well, now that we're seeing like the hardcore fans are really into this, then now we can put out something maybe like a animation and then that might capture, the more casual folks. And then now you come up with a big movie, and now you kind of, set the tone that way. Ronaldo says, casual, for example, my brother likes Star Wars, but he doesn't read comics or books, but he's aware of the High Republic, thanks to the show.
Okay.
Thanks to the shorts, I'm sorry.
Well, that actually makes sense because the shorts have been getting a lot of publicity lately.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know. Once again, they just dropped on us.
Yeah.
I mean, do you remember any announcement about it at all? Because it's just like, oh, look.
Yeah, by the way.
By the way, yeah, we have these shorts now. And it's like, okay. Where did the shorts come from exactly? And what shorts are they talking about? And at first I actually thought it was a misprint. Like I thought maybe they were talking about, either the comics or a book or something. Because what was interesting to me about the High Republic, and this is another really weird, whacked way they're doing some marketing, but they actually have the different levels, right, with these books. Like, for instance, The Light of the Jedi is technically a young adult novel.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, and again, if you guys have never read the young adult novels, they're actually lost stars.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they're good.
There's a lot of things. I know what everybody thinks of when stuff is classified
as young adult,
but
like it's some like Twilight teeny bopper.
Yeah, exactly. Or just some, crazy, like some 12-year-old girl. No offense to 12-year-old girls, but some 12-year-old girl is out there like just swooning over it or whatever, or like some little kid is, it's basically just something that we think of as not very interesting. It's usually lighter in plot and all this other stuff. But I have to say, that's not the way that Star Wars has been doing the young adult novels. In fact, I'll go on to say that I think that it's unfairly classified as young adult because it doesn't read that way at all.
Yeah. And, I think we're going to have to sit back and kind of just watch how everything unfolds and just see and maybe they're trying something new with their marketing. They're kind of trying to start fresh, or maybe they're just trying some stuff out. So we just got to wait and see.
I guess. All right. What do we got next?
All right. Next. Could they make, Star Wars might make Mara Jade canon.
I reversed it on you. We're actually talking about the Andor series, not with no K2SO.
Okay.
Yeah, right. You didn't read your PDF file. That's why I send it to them, folks.
Oh, boy. Here you go. All right. So, as Eric aforementioned. So, basically, the Cassian Andor series is coming out pretty soon, and everybody's pretty, hopped up about it. For those of you who are not aware, Andor, the series Andor pretty much talks about, it's kind of a prequel to Rogue One, which is a standalone Star Wars movie that kind of takes place in the timeline right before, like maybe like a couple of days or hours or something like before A New Hope.
Yeah, it's like maybe like a week or something, or a few days, or it's really hard to determine.
Yeah,
with that movie, like how much time is passing.
Well, it leads up to like the very start.
Well, yeah, like it's right. It bumps right up against it. But I mean, the thing is it's true. Is it like, was it a day and a half? Was it 2 weeks? Was it?
It seemed like it took kind of at least a few days for that.
It would
have everything to kind of unfold because. But we're jumping around in hyperspace, and who knows how time flies, literally. So, but yeah, in the Cassian Andor series, it pretty much goes back to Cassian Andor and kind of shows the start of, or maybe we don't know exactly where it's going to pick up from. So we don't know if it's right when he defects from the Separatist unit to the Rebel Alliance, or
what's the time period?
For Andor?
Yeah.
I don't think they exactly gave an exact.
See, and that's the good point.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say with the Separatist thing, it would depend on, is this taking place during the Clone Wars? Because the Separatists were pretty much done as of Episode 3.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, during it. Basically, like when Grievous was killed, that was it. And pretty much there was no more need to even have the Separatist movement at that point.
Yeah, and the Separatists were really kind of they're more like a political group.
Yeah.
So, it kind of, you could kind of see those ideals of that particular, and maybe that's where we're looking at things from, because they're not like a race of people, but they're like a political group. So, Cassian Andor pretty much was a part of that group, and he ends up defecting and joining the rebels. And along the path, when we see him in Rogue One, he has this really towering, very imposing droid by the name of K2SO. It's played by the actor Alan Tudyk, and K2SO is quite hilarious. He's basically a former Imperial droid that was pretty much reprogrammed, and now he's used for the Rebel Alliance. And apparently, we're not going to see him in the first season of Andor.
That really shocked me.
Yeah, that really shocked me too.
I mean, that was really surprising to me. When I first read that, I was like, really? Because it almost sounded like he was going to be there right from the beginning, the way that everybody was making it sound. Mm-hmm. But I do know, and I see that you made that distinction. He did say the first season.
Yeah.
And I think the quote was something along the lines of, if the show keeps going or whatever, then he'll pop up. But what was really telling to me was the fact that he said that if the show goes on, the closer it gets to Rogue One or something like that, like the closer the events get or whatever, mm-hmm. then, he'll pop up. So that leads me to wonder, when exactly did he meet K2SO? Now, I know there was that Cassian Andor comic book, which I didn't read, which I might be tempted to the closer it gets to the series being released, but it was all about, I think, how he got him or whatever, because, if people have forgotten, or maybe they never knew, I don't know. But K2SO basically was a reprogrammed Imperial assassin droid. He's like a security droid, actually. Mm-hmm. And he was basically taken by the rebels and reprogrammed, and then he became Cassian's pretty much like his right-hand droid. But the thing that's interesting, though, is when did all that take place? Now, of course, when we're watching Rogue One, we're like, okay, they've obviously been together for a while.
Yeah, they definitely have this relationship.
They had a relationship. It was a familiarity that was way beyond, we're just meeting or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it leads me to wonder, how long before Rogue One did he end up getting K2SO? And it's going to be interesting to see where in the timeline the first season of Andor falls. Because if it could fall a little bit closer to the Clone Wars or the end of it. Hmm. And personally, I don't know about you, but I would love to see a little bit of Cassian as a separatist and see a little bit more. Because if you think about it, the movies kind of depict the separatist movement as just sort of like this black and white. They're kind of the bad guys.
Right.
But the Clone Wars is where you really start to see the complexity mm-hmm. of the separatist movement. And as you pointed out in the introduction, that they were more of a political, it was more of like a political disagreement. And they actually had the best interests at heart, too. They saw some of the corruption of the Republic mm-hmm. and were like, hey, we don't want any part of this. So it's going to be interesting to see if they actually depict Cassian as part of the separatist movement and maybe further, I don't really want to say humanize it, but further, I guess, go into all of its intricacies and whatnot.
Yeah, one of the things I'm really curious about this particular series is because it's always been kind of labeled as a spy thriller.
Yeah, that's right. It has, hasn't it? Like
like kind of a James
Ocean's
Bond.
11 or something.
Yeah, James Bond, Ocean's 11.
Well, that's more of a heist film, but
Bourne, Jason Bourne.
Yeah, the Jason Bourne
series. So, but I'm also wondering, because even in those movies, like your Bonds and stuff like that, they deal with political issues, mm-hmm. and that's what a lot of times sends James on his way and stuff like that. So I'm wondering, is this going to kind of give us more of that political vibe, because you have some, you got some pretty big people that's going to be in this show. Stellan Skarsgård being one of them. Andrea Arjona, she's going to be in there. So I'm thinking like you might get a lot of that. I wonder if we're going to get some of that Bloodline vibe in there.
You mean almost kind of like a political thriller type of thing?
That's a political but kind of spy thriller, almost like Patriot Games or.
Oh yeah,
like
any of the Jack Ryan films.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's kind of a combination.
Right, like a Jack Reacher or that kind of.
Oh, that would be awesome. Man.
Yeah, and that's what I'm kind of thinking. Like it might be along that kind of just set place in the Star Wars. Universe.
I would be all about it.
I know.
Because I mean that's one of the things that I always thought. First of all, it's actually one of my favorite genres. So, a couple of my favorite genres.
Ladies, if you want to date Eric, this is what you need to know.
Right? Everybody's
like
starting
long
to
walks
take
on
notes.
the beach, spy thrillers, Star Wars, of course.
I like, right? I like movies and puzzles and
Cobra Kai. All right, I'm gonna leave you alone.
Oh, that's great. And if the chats light up, though, I mean, I'm just saying. But nah, girlfriend would definitely not be down with that. But the thing that's interesting to me, though, is my favorite genres, at least some of them. I mean, I actually have quite a few, but the ones that I keep basically going back to, you got horror, obviously, and mysteries. I absolutely love mysteries. In fact, if I had to pick a favorite genre, mysteries would probably be the one. But the whole political thriller, spy thriller type of thing, that's always been up there. I love watching movies like that. Or like there was an old, I know Gene Hackman was in it. It was called No Way Out. And it was basically, there was this murder in the Pentagon and, I think it was like a naval officer or something. And they were trying to cover it up and all this stuff. Or Murder at 1600. What are some of the other ones? Well, The Firm. That's another good one. Even though that's kind of like that's almost like a law thriller type of thing. But, it's kind of that same type of deal, though, and I love movies like that. And I always thought something like that could really work well in Star Wars. Because, again, and you and I, how many times have we said on the show, they should really start doing genre films. Not Star Wars in and of itself is definitely a fantasy sci-fi, more so fantasy. But in fact, it's more of a sci-fi fantasy film, and yes, it does matter. It's not just semantics; it really does matter. But the thing is that even though it's rooted in sci-fi fantasy, you can actually take it into different directions. You can have more of a horror type of thing. You can have, and The Mandalorian's been proving this because, we had a heist film episode. We had more of a Western episode. We've had a bunch of different genre type episodes that people are starting to pick up on this now. Like, hey, you can do a Star Wars thriller or something like that. And honestly, I think that in the films, that's where part of the future of Star Wars lies, I think. I don't really think that we need an episode 10, 11, and 12 as much as we need more movies that you can take Star Wars and put them in different genres. I mean, it might be a stretch to do a Star Wars romantic comedy.
You could
but you could do it though.
If Han Solo didn't die, and if Carrie Fisher didn't die.
Like for real.
For real. That's why I said Carrie Fisher, not Leia.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, you could totally do one with those two.
Oh, absolutely. You could do, I mean, there's so many different ways that you could do a romantic comedy, or you can do, you could do a legal thriller, I guess. I mean, you could just do so many different kinds of films within the Star Wars universe. And I think that it's a lost opportunity if they don't pursue that more. And so bringing it back, if Andor is more like that spy political thriller, I think that more than anything else, it's going to open it up because I think it's going to be heavier on the genre. And here's what I mean. I don't know about you, but I don't really think that anybody was going, really wish they would make a series about Cassian Andor. Now, granted, I thought that he was a really cool character, but I wasn't necessarily going, man, I'd love to see like a standalone film with this guy.
All right.
Even though it's compelling, like he could actually make a good subject for a series, but I wasn't asking for it. But now you take that character and you basically root it in a genre type of series. Now I think that you've really opened the door to something special. And he is the perfect subject, perfect character to do a political spy type of thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that would, broaden the Star Wars scope a lot. Just having these different types of genre films. And like you said, Mandalorian's done episodes where you've had a Western theme, a heist theme. You've had some horror, like with the crazy spider thing, the ice spider. So you have all these different things that you could really use as a template or as a background to show you, like, yeah, these things are successful. But it's just a matter of, like, do you have the right story to tell? So I think with Cassian Andor, we're going to get that. I think we're going to get some cool political aspects to it. I think we're going to find out a lot more what's kind of going on in the background. So that's what I'm really curious about. And then, especially based upon perspective, because the separatists feel one way, the rebels are kind of like, well, we kind of agree with you, but kind of disagree. And this is kind of, we kind of meet in that gray area. And I think, Cassian's going to realize, well, that's the best way to operate is in the gray, because then you can kind of really, effectuate change. So, it's really interesting. I can't wait to see it. But I know, like Ronaldo was saying, that, a lot of fans, loved K2SO, the character of K2SO. So I think it's kind of a loss, especially season 1, because especially if you're seeing it, you're thinking, oh, we're going to get K2SO, and then you don't. You're like, well, what happened? But I think, like the interview said, the more seasons they have, he's definitely going to pop up.
Yeah, I definitely think that if the show goes on, he'll pop up. But my question is, basically, in what capacity he's going to show up? Like, are they going to show the whole, he was a Imperial security droid?
I think you have to. And it's no different than
almost like an origin story, basically?
Yeah, well, I think you have to. No different than we did with Solo. Like how we never saw how he got Chewie. We just saw he was with Chewie in episode 4, but in Solo, we see how he meets Chewie, and we're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's true. Even though we always heard the stories, we never really delved into it. Which, and it's funny that you bring that up, too, because that was one of the ones I wasn't sure how I felt about it at first. Like, I was like, I don't really know if this is really the way that I envisioned him meeting Chewie, but in the end, I think it worked out all right.
Yeah, so Ronaldo said, to your point, what about a romantic comedy with Jar Jar and Julia, his girlfriend in the Clone Wars? No, Ronaldo.
Oh, man, I totally forgot about that story arc.
I did, too.
Wow.
But no, I don't want to watch anything with Jar Jar. I'm just laying it out there.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of a stretch. It's just like you can't have the series like Meet the Palpatines or something. I mean, there's just certain things that
I think Jar Jar would be good, like on like Nick Jr. or something like that. Like put him like on one of those, like I can't even say like. Well, I guess you don't have to because now we have Disney Plus. But we used to watch Rebels, Disney XD.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
He would be more so along the lines of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Star Wars Resistance type of thing.
Exactly.
Did you ever finish watching that?
Absolutely.
Telling you, man, it gets better. Like, how many episodes did you see again? Like 2?
3. Yeah, I'm gonna get to it though. I will.
I know. But I mean, since I'm always interested in doing this, how's Queen's Peril coming?
It's great.
You're like 3/4 of the way the last time we spoke.
Still in the same spot. I'm consistent though.
Yeah, well, one never knows. All right. So what do you guys think about this whole K2SO not being an Andor thing? Do you think that that's, first of all, is that a deal breaker for you? I mean, because there's some people that might be like, you know what, I'm not really watching the show because, honestly,
some people look at them as a pair. Like, I gotta have both.
Exactly. There's that. I didn't think about that, but that's true. It's kind of like, well, you can't have one without the other. So the other one, though, is that for some people, like Rogue One, K2SO completely made the movie for them. Like, if you take out K2SO from that movie, and I would agree with it. I mean, there was enough for me to love about Rogue One, period. But I will say that K2SO was one of the things that I really enjoyed about the movie. It wasn't so bad where it's like if you took him away, the movie would fall. It wouldn't. But for some people, though, it would. So if you guys are out there, you might be one of those people that says, you know what, without K2SO, that's a deal breaker. I'm not watching the series. So if you're one of those, let us know in the comments and, let us know what you guys are thinking. Or are you guys really looking forward to this, even though K2SO isn't in it? If so, why? All right, what do we got next? For real this time.
Yeah, thank you. Star Wars might make Luke Skywalker's wife, Mary Jade, canon.
Yeah, that's just like, that's so exciting to me.
Yeah.
I mean, because first of all, look, I'm going to say right out the gate, I thought that she should have been made canon immediately, along with Thrawn. It's kind of like what took you so long. Because if it were up to me, Episode 7 would have been Heir to the Empire. And I know I'm not alone in feeling that way. In fact, I know a lot of people feel that way. But what I'm thinking, though, is how are they going to make her canon now?
Well, apparently she might make her appearance in the spinoff series Ahsoka.
Which, that would actually make some sense, though, because...
Goes back to our Duel of Fates, too.
Well, yeah. Yeah, in fact, it does. And wouldn't it be interesting if we actually saw an Ahsoka Mara Jade matchup?
Oh, my goodness.
We'd almost have to revisit our little Duel of the Fates segment at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
But, I mean, it makes sense because... And here's why. She's going after Thrawn. Now, before I continue with this line of thinking, I have to know from you and you, audience, do you think that Thrawn is actually going to appear in The Mandalorian, or do you think that Ahsoka was dropping? Because remember, the whole Ahsoka episode was sort of like a soft pilot for her series.
Right.
So it's almost like you're dropping Ahsoka in and say, look, live action Ahsoka. And now she mentions Thrawn, and it's like, look, there's Ahsoka's main villain for her series. And then they just sort of port over to the Ahsoka series. But the question, and it's a very good question, is like, will she actually be, or not her, will Thrawn actually be a villain also? Because I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to be a villain on Ahsoka, but is he going to maybe make his first appearance in The Mandalorian and then port over? Things to ponder.
I'm going to go with yeah.
You going to go with yeah?
Yep.
Really?
I think because...
I don't know why I'm surprised. I'm acting like this is a big deal or something like that. Like, really?
Why would you think something like that? No.
It's like, are you nuts?
Well, the reason why I think that it will is because, once again, you introduce the character in Mandalorian. Like, so if you're a casual fan, once again, of watching this Mandalorian show, and then it's like, okay, where is Thrawn? It's like, and of course, all of us Star Wars guys are just like, oh my gosh, he said Thrawn, so is Thrawn coming? Is Thrawn coming? It's almost kind of like how we felt when we saw Thanos, like, in the Avengers movie, at the end, we're just like, whoa, was that Thanos? Or so I think that you introduce Thrawn, but maybe like, okay, he's really shows up in Ahsoka though. Like he might make an appearance in Mandalorian, and then he's like, all right, well, I must go find Ahsoka Tano or something like that, because she has the key or
that would be perfect. That's like his line right there. Okay, I got to go find Ahsoka Tano, so see ya.
Yeah. Right.
Well, here's what I'm thinking is going to happen, and it's kind of an offshoot. I do think that he is going to appear first in The Mandalorian. In fact, I think he's going to appear in season 3.
It would make sense.
But I think what's going to happen, there's like one of two things, and I can't make up my mind which it is yet. Because I still think that ultimately he's the one pulling Gideon's strings.
I could see that, definitely.
I don't think that Gideon is like the be-all, end-all villain of The Mandalorian. I think it, just like Werner Herzog's, I can never remember his character's name. But his character, it was almost made to sound like he was the guy, and then, of course, you know, Gideon comes along and basically kills him, and you're like, oh, all right, well, I guess his story arc is done. Just like you think that Quill is going to be sort of like the Obi-Wan or Yoda figure to Din, but then he ends up dying. So you're like, oh, well, I guess that storyline's over. So you never really know what's going to happen, but I think that we're going to find out, because it could go either way. It could be that Palpatine's ultimately the guy behind the scenes and doing it, but I think we're going to find out that Thrawn is the one that's sort of pulling some of the strings, and he might pop up kind of like how Vader would do every once in a while, or a Palpatine or something like that, to where you're not seeing him in every episode, but he's kind of there and reminding you that he's the guy. But then, yes, then you're going to see him heavily featured in the Ahsoka series.
Mm-hmm. And I think you could even do, like I said, we were talking about, you know, these characters like Mara Jade and Thrawn. I can see, you know, if we're talking about Thrawn, I can see him not even so much popping up like in true physical form. I could see him being like
name dropped, basically.
No, we already done that. I think we're going to see like the hologram.
Oh, the hologram. Yes, the infamous Star Wars story device that lets you feature a character without featuring him, a la Darth Maul in Solo.
Mm-hmm.
Which now that was a shock.
Yeah, and so I think if you see, like, people see a first look at Thrawn, he's like, well, you know, because I think where we left Mandalorian, you know, of course, Bo-Katan wants the Darksaber back, which now is in the possession of Din. Din is trying to give it to her, but he can't give it to her. She has to win it in ritual combat. So I can see there's some, there's going to be a lot of friction going on with that. Gideon, of course, you know, playing the mastermind game kind of with Cara Dune. I think that's when we're going to kind of find out about Thrawn. And then at some point, maybe they're in a situation, and then that's when you see, like, dang, like, how did they get up in this situation? Then you see Thrawn pop up, and he's like, well, if you give me the location to Ahsoka Tano, I'll let you live, or something like that. And then everybody's like, oh, okay. And then, you know, now we know that he's going to be on the Ahsoka show. It could just be something simple like that.
Well, but now here's the thing, though, going to Mara Jade, though. So basically, I think the article said that Ahsoka was where she probably would pop up.
Right.
But I don't know. I can make an argument that she could pop up in Acolyte, maybe.
Well, Acolyte takes place, well, according to Ronaldo, Acolyte takes place like right at the end of the High Republic.
Yeah, but I mean, is it only going to take place there? Because I've been hearing a bunch of different stuff. I've been hearing that it takes place there. I've been hearing that it takes place a little bit, like, maybe not much later than the High Republic, but like closer to the Republic we know, the more the modern era.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it's going to time jump. I'm not really sure which one's right. I mean, I would agree that probably wouldn't be the time period she would pop up. I don't think Rangers of the New Republic is going to be something she would pop up in. I mean,
well, honestly, I kind of feel like, once again, how things are kind of spawning off or jumping from one series to the next. So when we last left Mandalorian, Luke Skywalker came in, saved the day, took Grogu with him. So now that I could see that factoring into Ahsoka. And then, I don't think we've seen the last of Ahsoka either, like in Mandalorian. I think she's going to pop up maybe again, at least, like, okay, well, he might have to go back to her for help. Because, like I said, you got the whole Bo-Katan situation. Bo-Katan's very close with Ahsoka.
That's the only reason why I think that maybe, because if they start to do the whole Mandalore thing and they have the Darksaber now.
Well, yeah, they do have the Darksaber, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I think
Well, Din does.
Well, yeah.
I thought that was great.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, no, here, we don't have to fight. You just take it.
Yeah, I don't want it. But I think what's going to happen is that now they're going to wonder, she's going to wonder what happened to Grogu. And like, okay, well, who showed up? And it's like, oh, this guy. And, it's like, oh, is it Luke Skywalker? And
did you read that whole thing that there was like some article that came out today. It was not today. It was like yesterday, or maybe it was the day before. It was some point this week within the last few days. And it was basically like they're trying to say that Last Jedi line where, I saw this kind of raw power once before and, I wasn't afraid of it then, but I'm, afraid of it now, or that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. It was Grogu?
Yeah. Not Kylo.
Not Kylo. Yeah, I heard that.
And I'm like, I don't know, man. I mean, I get it, but...
You could make it work, but...
You could make it work, but it's like, first of all, nobody even had any idea...
Yeah.
...that Grogu was even there yet.
Yeah.
Because, it was made...
Because we know how much planning they did back then, so...
Yeah, right?
So...
Exactly. It's like, you think if they had that kind of forethought, then the sequel trilogy is even worse than I thought.
Exactly.
Because, they weren't doing that. Now, granted... The only reason why I was giving a little bit of credence to it was because authors would confer with some of the directors and things like that. Like Claudia Gray did consult Rian Johnson when she wrote Bloodline, because there were going to be some things that were going to get a little bit into that Force Awakens, Last Jedi timeline. So and I think that it was also because Bloodline basically was more like a prequel, that Rian Johnson wanted to actually get her input on some things. And, they basically had a little bit of a conference about things like characters and plot points and things like that. So it's not unheard of that authors and filmmakers would basically share notes. And, of course, this is really the job of the Lucasfilm Story Group that doesn't always seem to be doing what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, that's just an outsider's point of view, but it's like, you get all these continuity things. It's like, look, you guys have one job. And I'm not saying it's easy. I mean, there's a lot of crap you got to keep track of in the Star Wars universe. I mean, we host a Star Wars show. How many times am I going, yeah, what's the name of that? Tonight. I'm like, who's the guy? And you're like, well, it begins with a B. And, it's, look, I get it. There's a lot that you have to keep track of in this universe. But I'm thinking, though, if it's your job and it's your only job,
all right,
maybe you might want to be a little bit better with the continuity. So I don't really think that, you can retcon it to mean that, I guess, but...
Yeah. I don't think that's going to work.
No, and I don't think that that's the direction they're going to go, and it actually makes more story sense if it's Kylo anyway.
Yeah. Ronaldo, let's see. He says, I think Thrawn will be featured in the Ahsoka series. Maybe Mara is the hand of Thrawn. That's possible.
Oh.
He said, but I definitely don't... think Mara will be Luke's wife, at least not at that point, because they have been talking about a Luke Skywalker series still, and so if that's to come.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was the other place that I thought might be where they could put the Mara character.
Oh, of course. I mean,
like if she wasn't in Ahsoka, maybe she could be in the Luke Skywalker series,
right?
Which would make sense.
Oh, total. Ronaldo also says, to add, I understand the last days of the High Republic happened 50 years before the prequel, so maybe Merrick can be there.
Yeah, it's tough to say. It depends on, and again, this is the kind of thing that you have to be careful about, because when Disney actually plucks a character out of the expanded universe, they don't always tamper with their story too much, but slightly. Like, Thrawn is a little bit different in the Disney Lucasfilm era than in the expanded universe era. Not by much. Mm-hmm. Not to the point where he's unrecognizable or anything like that, but he's a little bit different. And add to that, they also stuck him in, kind of where Rebels is at, which is a little bit before the original trilogy. Whereas we are first introduced to him post Return of the Jedi. So it's kind of like really the Mandalorian era would be where he would comfortably reside, which is why I'm glad that they put him there, because now he's where we're all familiar with him being, right? So it's one of those things that I could see them taking Mara Jade and maybe making her a little bit different, whether they make her Luke Skywalker's wife in this. Because remember, the whole backstory with her is the fact that she was the Emperor's hand. She finds out that Luke Skywalker's the one that killed Vader and the Emperor, so now she wants to get revenge and kill him. And in the process of doing that, she ends up falling in love with him and then marrying him and then actually having kids with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's one of those things that she ended up becoming a fan favorite character because she was so cool, too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, she was written really well. She popped up in all of Timothy Zahn's things, of course, because she was another, much like Thrawn, she was another Timothy Zahn creation. But what's cool, though, is that you can take this character and you can make her, you could tweak it a little bit to where it could work in the Disney canon.
Yeah.
So you, and what's interesting about this is you can either make her Skywalker's wife, because if you do it around the time of The Mandalorian, it kind of works. Because you figure, okay, when he turns into Grumpy Luke, she's like, I'm not having this anymore, and
leaves him
or whatever. Or maybe it was one of those they're separated.
Or maybe she just died, and
she could have died. Yeah,
he's still kind of grieving, and he's got a lot of things, baggage he's dealing with.
Well, I think it's going to depend a lot on what they do with her as far as her age, because, you know, in the expanded universe version of Thrawn, he was a Grand Admiral by the time of, you know, post Return of the Jedi. So it makes sense that he was probably in command for a while. So when they put him in Rebels, it wasn't beyond. I mean, he was a Grand Admiral then, though. But, you know, and that's possible. But it just depends on what they're doing with his age. And that's my point with Mara, is like, it depends on where they end up putting her. Now, if they keep her, again, in the Ahsoka series, then yeah, it makes sense that you can keep her as the same age as she was in the expanded universe. You could do all that stuff. And that's one of the characters that, honestly, you could put her in almost as is from the EU, and it would work. It would work fine even in the new canon. So, I mean, personally, I hope that they put her in. Because I always thought that she was just a really well-written, amazing, fun character. I don't know. It was one of those things that I always enjoyed anytime that she was in any of the books. And she ended up being in a lot. She was one of those characters that, like, every writer used her.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's a very beloved character. I think people want to see, like I said, just as much as Thrawn, I think people do want to see that whole Luke and Mara relationship and what that looked like, you know, in real time. So I just hope, you know, but like I said, at the core of it all, it has to serve the story, you know, and that's what we always have to keep in mind. Like, if there's no real story for it, without it feeling shoehorned or, you know, forced in there, then,
oh yeah,
you know.
Well, and that's it. I mean, that's really the main point, is that, are you bringing the character in really to serve some sort of story arc that you have planned?
Right.
Or is it, ooh, let's shove Mara Jade in there? Because one of the things that's driving me insane, it's kind of a Cobra Kai thing, right? So I belong to this Cobra Kai Facebook group. And there's been a couple of people that are actually trying to leave this group now because they're so tired of, you know, they're like, there's a bunch of idiots in here. And it is, because, and I understand where they're coming from, because they're almost doing the same thing with Star Wars. Oh, wouldn't it be cool if, like, Tori was Terry Silver's daughter? And, you know, you're getting, like, all this stuff. Like, come on, man. Mm-hmm. Does everybody... I mean, look, you have Robbie being Johnny's son. You have basically Sam being Daniel's daughter. I mean, really, do you need any more than that? Does everybody have to be related?
Right.
You know, I pointed out when I was getting kind of sick of it myself, was like, you do realize this show takes place in L.A., right? You know how big that city is. It's not like it's a small town. And I think that one of the problems that happens in the Star Wars universe is that people have a tendency to try to, you know, pluck these characters in and shoehorn them in and then put them in these unnatural
situations.
Yeah, like like with Jenna, how many times did everybody say, "Oh, that's definitely Lando's granddaughter or something," or
Right.
you know, all this other stuff? It's like, no, maybe. And it actually turned out that what the whole problem was that Lando, I'm trying to remember what the backstory was, but the reason why he kind of had that connection with her was because when she was taken or whatever, it was almost like he knew about it, or he knew something or whatever, and he was like looking for, I forgot what it was, but it was actually a really cool explanation beyond the obvious family relation thing. And I think that that's really cool. And I think that that's what they need to do with a character like Mara Jade. Like you said, don't just shoehorn her in because, and this is one of the things that Star Wars does all the time, is they look around and they go, hey, what other character could we do? And that was something that was striking me about Cobra Kai too, because, again, these people that are coming out with all these really cool series, you really respect the writers a lot more when you listen to the fans.
Yeah.
Because it's like you get all these people from all walks of life commenting on these things and their story ideas and what characters they should bring in and how they should bring them in. And you're like, man, I am so glad that these people are not the ones that are doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm hoping from the people from Star Wars. Now, we're getting that with Favreau and Filoni. But I'm hoping that moving forward, these other showrunners, that they say, listen, we really want quality stories first. And then let's look at, you know, in the vast Star Wars universe, who can we bring in that would best further the story? And that's really what should be the deciding factor. You know, it's not like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to bring Mara Jade? No. Does Mara Jade actually function
in this world?
In this basic, like this world that they're talking about. Now, I say that, but then I'm over there going, man, I really hope they bring Mara Jade into this thing somehow. But that's because I think that she could fit the overall story arc really well, and I think that they could tell really cool stories. In fact, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't mind even seeing a Mara Jade series.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it would be cool, but like you said, it just has to fit. You know, it just has to make sense, and it's not, like I said, a shoehorn thing. Because there's things, yeah, you could put, and it's okay. You can say that it's believable, and it's like, yeah, but it's too on the nose. Like your thing about Cobra Kai, about when he, you know, spoiler alert, but you know, when Allie comes back, it's like, okay, well, you don't have Johnny falling in love with, like, that's the thing that you would normally would do.
Yes, and that's
the fact
a perfect
that didn't
point.
happen.
Yes, and that just, and you know what? When you look at the way that they handled that and the whole Daniel Alley thing, big spoiler alert. If you look at the way that they handled everything, they could have messed that up so easily. And when you read the comments from a lot of these fans that what they were hoping would happen, it's like, you know what? And that's one of those things that they handled it wrong. It would have just been so horrible. It would have been stupid. You know, it would have just kind of like ruined the show.
Yeah, you have more dynamic with now Johnny going after Miguel's mom, and that's
Carmen. Yeah,
Carmen. Yeah, you have more.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things. I mean, you know, and I remember holding my breath, like, no, you know, when he's kind of like trying to date her again and stuff. I'm like, dude, really? You got this really cool thing with her, with Carmen. Don't mess that up.
Yeah,
and that's the kind of thing that you want to inspire in your storytelling. You want people yelling at the TV.
Mm-hmm.
You want people emotionally investing in this stuff.
Right.
So that's my personal hope. I know that's yours too. What about you guys? What are you thinking about when it comes to the Mara or Mara, however you want to say it, Jade character? Do you think, number one, they should even bring her back into this universe? Or do you think that she should just be a beloved character in the expanded universe? If you do think that she belongs in this universe, what series would you guys like to see her in? That's the question I got for everybody. You know, let us know in the comment section. All right, so.
Oh, that, you know, got a little hot there, so it might need to.
I know, yeah. You know, it's time to cleanse. So, you know, we're gonna go for clearing your mind. I can't say it during the music because I haven't programmed it, but you know how it goes. We're gonna do it, folks. All right. So this is a segment where basically you guys send us in questions. We pick 2 of them, and then we answer them. Or sometimes we don't. I guess it really depends on whether or not we really know what we're talking about. So, who do we got first?
First question comes from Ian Gorsh. His question is, can someone explain what is Star Wars humor? How is it different from Marvel? As he laughs.
Yeah, right? Well, I think it's funny because I almost wonder if this person hasn't seen our show a lot, because we address that all the time. We're like, it's not Star Wars humor. This is more Marvel humor.
Right.
The easiest way to explain it is The Last Jedi is Marvel humor. And all the other Star Wars movies are Star Wars humor. But it really is kind of a hard thing to quantify sometimes. I would think that Star Wars humor is less about one-liners and sort of bringing levity into serious situations, which is more what Marvel does.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it all the time, if you read the comics, because that's really where the whole Marvel humor sort of stems from. And there is some Star Wars humor in Marvel, but basically the Star Wars style humor is more situational. It's characters basically reacting in a funny way based on their situation. It's a more natural style of humor. It's not so much one-liners and cracking jokes.
Yeah, like it's if I could compare it, it's more like if you're familiar with the show Frasier, Star Wars is kind of like Star Wars humor is more like Frasier humor. It's more witty. It's more kind of like you said, just situational. Like, oh, okay, well, I guess that works. That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Versus Marvel humor, it's more like Married with Children almost. Like it's kind of designed to get to zap you almost like.
Well, I mean, basically what it is it's almost like Marvel humor is when they don't really break the fourth wall or anything like that, but basically they're almost cracking jokes about their situation.
Yeah.
It's like almost like a nonstop stand-up comedy routine. Now, there are some stuff that, and don't get me wrong, I mean, we're not saying that Marvel humor isn't funny. It is. It's hilarious. Oh, yeah. But it's a different kind of a thing. Whereas Star Wars humor is a little bit more understated. It's more commenting on the situation. I'm trying to think of like some lines. I mean, of course, there's a whole "I love you, I know."
Yeah.
That's like kind of a character thing to say. He wasn't cracking a joke. He was being him, and that's funny.
Or like the whole like, okay, when Leia's yelling at Han, she's like, you know, half-witted, scruffy-looking, blah, 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 nerve herder. And like the one thing he felt, he's like, wait, who's scruffy-looking? Like,
right. Like that's scruffy. The funny thing.
That's the funny thing. He keys on it. Like, well, everything else I agree with you with. The scruffy part, I'm like, all right, I might be half-witted. You might even have a point there. You know, it's kind of like that.
They're not trying to be. I mean, it's not like they're not. I mean, I can't say they're not trying to be funny because they're just humorously commenting. Like, I just assume kiss a Wookiee. I can arrange that. You know, it's just kind of like them going back and forth, being a little bit sarcastic and stuff like that. They're not cracking jokes.
Yeah, it's more sarcasm. It's more, this is very less prankish kind of humor. So, like, when Poe was up, like, okay, yeah, hello, is General Hux there? Yep, skinny, pasty, white kind of guy. You know, it's just like.
Right. See, now this is something more like what Iron Man
I was just about to say that that's an Iron Man line.
That's an Iron Man line. I mean, that's basically like kind of the Iron Man sort of character. I mean, there are funny moments that are more Star Wars-ish in Marvel, though. Like, one of my favorite ones was, I think it was Infinity War. What was the one where Doctor Strange basically had Thor and Loki, like, falling infinitely? And then he started talking to basically like Thor, because Thor came through first. But like Loki was falling for
forever.
Yeah, forever. And then when he finally like lands, he just looks. He's like, I've been falling for 20 or something like that. That's more what you might see in Star Wars.
Or the whole Loki line is like, see, that's how it feels. When he, when he got slammed around by the Hulk, it's like, see, it's like, all right.
See, yeah, that would be something that maybe might be more fitting in Star Wars.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, there's just like, shut him up or shut him down. There's just like a lot of things that are there. It's a little bit more almost like commentary style. It's again, it's just
using like once again, Return of the Jedi one is Han keeps trying to tell 3PO to get his stuff for him. It's like, yeah, see if they got any supplies, and then then 3PO's trying to start translating, and then and get this. Okay, and then they'll get this, like, but hurry up, man, I ain't got all day. It's like,
right.
It's not really like Han is just an impatient guy, and that's just all part of his character, as opposed to
character humor.
Yeah,
that's another big distinction too. Is that it's based more on the character and what they would do, and it's just a more natural, humorous, understated, situational type of a thing.
Yeah. Once again, Return of the Jedi, don't worry. I lived here. You're going to die here. It's like, it's just kind of like, dude, you do realize we're about to go into this whole Sarlacc pit. Like,
or, it's like, well, be careful. And Han's like, hey, it's me.
Right.
It's just, and everybody's like, oh boy, here we go.
Yep.
And that's basically it. It's one of those types of things, and it's more natural. And I think people find that funnier more because it's relatable than the actual stuff themselves, because it's basically stuff that you might say in that situation too.
Right.
So I think that's definitely it. So hopefully that,
like
I don't know if that,
one examples we've
right.
given.
I mean, it may have confused you further. I don't know, but
Sorry, Ian. See, Star Wars humor. The next question comes from Alan Dodd. His question is, do you think we will ever see a movie that discusses when the Force was discovered?
Well, there was talks that was going to be more what D.B. Weiss and like Benioff and Weiss were going to do. Yeah, their whole Old Republic thing that they were going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a movie that I would really honestly love to see, because, you kind of have to wonder, like, when did this happen? It's like, okay, one morning I woke up and I could make my toothbrush fly into my hand. Like, well, that was interesting. Or, I'm able to sense things, or things happen just, it's like you kind of almost like kind of confused.
Well, they were talking about how like the Force was really kind of concentrated into like one planet or something. And then, you had they did the whole history of the Jedi and Sith and stuff. And you do have to wonder though, when did it morph to where everybody kind of figured it out? Like you got Broom Kid over there just going, yeah, I'm just going to grab my broom. He's not out there trying to be some warrior or anything like that. He was just used his broom as across the room, and he basically just called it to him with the Force. So it makes you wonder, because this thing had to be discovered, was it kind of like what you were saying where, hey, I thought about my toothbrush and it just sort of flew into my hand? Or was it something that sort of gained a little bit of momentum and people started talking about it, and they see, and pretty soon they realize, well, hey, I could do this too.
Yeah.
It's really tough. And yeah, it would be cool to see a movie like that.
It would be cool, but then I think it would kind of also destroy a lot, because then, once again, it's almost kind of like that midichlorian thing where if you have to explain too much, it kind of takes away the whole mystique of it all.
Well, I think, and I've said this a million times too, is that it becomes
like science fiction now.
Yeah, it's more sci-fi than fantasy. It's like, look, when you see all these wizards and stuff performing magic in fantasy films, nobody's sitting there going, well, I wonder where the origin of this power came from. See, that's more of a sci-fi question.
Right.
And that's the thing with sci-fi, you have to explain everything. And sci-fi fans want to know everything. But the problem is, because Star Wars is a sci-fi fantasy, it does sort of beg that I wonder how a lightsaber works.
Well, see, that much I get. I mean, I can understand that because you can kind of see like, okay, just like they got ships that fly. I mean, I get that, but this mystical thing that like, okay, people kind of know about, and everybody thinks it's like some people just call it Jedi mind tricks or Jedi tricks or some form of weird sorcery or something like that, and it's just kind of like, well, people really don't understand it, but they know it exists. But they just don't know how it all works. And I'm just trying to think about, like, the question of it is, who discovered, like, when did this, like, who was the first person to realize that this power exists? And then it's like, like you said, somebody might walk like, hey, man, I was thinking about my toothbrush and it flew in my hand. Like, dude, me too. Like, it's like, okay, what the heck is this? Like, I don't know. But it's like, I can sense people, like I can sense people's thoughts. I can, like, it's weird. And,
no, man, that's a really good point too, because it's like a weapon, technology, all that other stuff. Yeah, that's the sci-fi part. That's the part that you explain.
Yeah.
But
they got cross-section books on that stuff.
Sure, but the mystical force kind of thing, it's like if you start to go into that and try to explain that too much, I don't know. I just think that...
Yeah, like, who figures the energy field that surrounds us, binds us, and penetrates us? Like, okay, well, when did that happen? It's just like, who's the first person to decide, like, okay, oh, look, I can choke my cat, and, oh, look, I can shoot lightning out of my hands or charge my cell phone with, this lightning or whatever.
Yeah, you want to talk about... Yeah, I got the lightning connection right here. Wireless charging and all that stuff. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, because they do give a little bit where you can go back into some of the comics and stuff like that, and you can actually learn, or you could even, honestly, you could just go to like StarWars.com and go to their data bank and type in Jedi or Sith, and it'll give you the entire rundown. And it would be kind of cool to see the origin of those organizations.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't necessarily need a whole explanation of the Force itself.
All right.
And I mean, I think that, you definitely bring up a good point where it's kind of like, look, man, we're, there's just like too much explanation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. So we probably have a lot of chats by now, I'm sure.
Let's see. Ronaldo.
It's almost like that, the Emperor Palpatine thing.
Go for Palpatine. So Ronaldo says, personally, I'm not bothered by the Marvel humor except for the mom's joke. It makes me laugh, but that's just overdoing it. Ronaldo also says that Loki joke was from Thor Ragnarok. And if there's a High Republic movie...
Ah, that's right, it was.
that's probably an opportunity to explain the Force.
Yeah, I mean, they could do that.
And the last one he has is it would be explained in books, so I assume it could happen in a movie adaptation.
Well, and that's it. And they could do kind of like a soft explanation, right? Where somebody just basically more the expository kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just give some expository dialogue.
Right.
Well, years ago when whatever. But I don't need a whole movie on it. See, that's the difference.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't
quick explanation, like
just give me kind of like an explanation of it. Man, it could be an opening crawl. If you want to go back to the whole saga type thing, or just give me an opening crawl. That'd be all right. But what are you guys thinking in terms of the whole Force and the explanation, or either one of the two questions, that we got? Star Wars humor versus Marvel humor. Which one do you like better? Do you think that they're interchangeable, or do you think that they should just pretty much stay segregated? But yeah, man, we actually survived.
Our new platform.
Our new platform and our new, our whole new thing, our new way of doing things. So I'm really kind of hoping that, now that we got everything pretty much worked out, when we do it again next week, I think we'll be okay. But if you guys like this episode, if you like what you see, you want to be part of our community, you want to discuss Star Wars with us, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button so we can keep bringing this stuff to you guys, because got a lot more Star Wars content coming out. Monday at 8 o'clock.
Yes.
For real this time. For real, we are going to do our top 10 favorite bounty hunters. So that should be interesting. So each one of us are going to give our top 10 favorites. And spoiler alert, there are some, crossover, like we have some of the same ones, some of the different ones. But the interesting thing is some of the ones that we have that are the same, we have at different spots.
Right.
So it's going to be a really cool discussion. You guys are definitely going to want to miss that. And, of course, join us again next Friday at 8 when we bring you guys even more Star Wars discussion, Star Wars news. And until then, I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.